Hello, and welcome to the Actual Magician's Bookshelf channel. Yes, I am an actual magician. So we're here with our reading desk, our tarot reading desk, and we're going to take a look at a method of tarot reading today. I thought we'd go through one particular method today. In previous sessions, we've done readings for people. We've looked last week at using a different sort of deck, a more intuitive deck, one that actually had a soundtrack for each card. So that was quite innovative. This is the Forda tarot deck from the Philippines that I was using. We've used Lenormand, we've used the Waite-Smith cards. We looked at how to do very intuitive readings when we did the Inscription Oracle, and we've looked at the difference between decks where we have strict... hello Shelley, yes, it's live. Yes, I can actually read, see and hear you, although I can't do either of those two things. I can just read what you're saying. So yes, this is live. And everyone give a hand to Tony Forsyth, who is moderating the chat. So he'll take good care of you, I'm sure, if I seem to be ignoring you because I'm concentrating on the cards. So what I thought we'd do today is something different, more of a teaching, sharing exercise, but just limit it to one exercise and one reading. That's partly because I've been on TikTok for a little while and I'm in need of spiritual sustenance. No slight to anyone on TikTok, but I find it a very confusing place to be. So I thought whenever I get overwhelmed by the nature of the universe, I always come back to tarot. So, Estera, yes, hello, I do remember. Yeah, back in the heady golden age of the pandemic. And also because this episode is brought to you by Strepsils Blackcurrant lozenges. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm just utilising them a lot at the moment because I was ill last week and I still have a bit of a sore throat. So yeah, there is a sort of rhythm to TikTok. A meddling sheep is saying mind rot, and I Newton is saying that, I bemused by it at the moment, but I find myself utterly confounded by the modern world, I'm afraid. So yeah. So we're going to do this reading and we'll take questions. We can go off on tangents. We've got a whole hour to sit and share, and you can use the comment section for socialising with each other as well. That's to be encouraged. So yeah, this is a method that's actually in Practical Tarot Techniques. Oh no, I'm sorry to hear that, Tracy. Yeah, there's obviously with schools going back, certainly here in the UK, it's the time for bugs and pestilence to be generally shared around. So just a little bit of quick insider behind the scenes background with this particular book written by myself and Tali. This book called Practical Tarot Techniques by Llewellyn, published by Llewellyn. When we first wrote this, we had the brilliant idea of calling it Tarot Face to Face. And that was because all of the techniques in it are written specifically from our experience of real readings, of actually reading face to face. And it was published as Tarot Face to Face. Katz and Goodwin, published by Llewellyn, master the tarot cards with essential skills and methods for insightful readings in everyday situations. Are you ready to come face to face with a tarot deck? And although it is a little bit difficult to see, this is supposed to be a mirror on a wall, so therefore reflecting your face. But of course, there's no face in the cover, and there's no tarot card either. So it didn't sell. It really didn't sell as well as it was expected to sell or should have done. So Llewellyn had the bright idea when it ran out of its first printing. They did want to reprint it. They thought that it had life in it, which is not the case with a couple of our books, like, for example, Tarot Time Traveller, where they've let that go out of print and they're not going to reprint it. In fact, they've returned the rights to us, so we're now running that as a course on the Tarot Association for members of the association, slightly repurposing and rewriting it. But with this one, they thought it had life in. So they republished it as Practical Tarot Techniques. So now it's Practical Tarot Techniques, your essential toolkit for better readings. They put tarot cards on the front of it, and it says, discover easy, smart and creative ways to improve your readings in every situation. Master the cards and develop your own unique style. So can you see how these two books, and you know they say that you can't judge a book by the cover? Well, you certainly can, because these are exactly the same two books, but the only difference is the blurb and the title and the cover. The actual contents are like for like inside. And this one is still selling strongly and well. So they did a good job, actually. Yeah, we like the subtlety, we like the nuanced nature of this, we like the title, but readers, when they, or potential readers, because most Llewellyn books are for absolute beginners, people, as we say, it's like Tracy and Samantha going into Waterstones and just picking up a book because they found a tarot deck. And so we have to have it very accessible right from the beginning, no nuance, no whatever. That's why there are so many beginner tarot books, or Complete Guide to the Tarot, or How to Read Tarot as the actual titles. Anything slightly nuanced, like we found with Tarot Time Traveller. So if I grab Tarot Time Traveller, enhance your modern readings with the wisdom of the past. But it doesn't say learn how to read tarot. It doesn't give any indication of what sort of experience you need, whether it's for beginners or history is the greatest teacher. Have you ever wondered where card meanings come from? This book has the answer. What we have discovered from this book and writing it, researching it for years and years and years, is people are not interested in where the card meanings come from. They just want to know how to read tarot. Hello, Star Dancer. Hello and welcome to the stream. So, and I'm not just saying that, I'm not just imagining it. It's demonstrable, it's provable. This book didn't sell as well as it should have done, and it's not been reprinted as a result, because no one is interested in the wisdom of the past or where the tarot card meanings come from, which is the main subject of this book. But people are very interested in better readings and practical tarot techniques. So this is just the way of things. Anyhow, we're going to do a method, and who was it that had asked? Leah, is that correct? Would you like a reading? You've asked for a reading, and it will be a more general sort of reading, the one I'm going to demonstrate, but if you're happy with that, just say so in the chat. And this is a overall reading that I want to demonstrate today, so if you're happy with not a specific reading, but just an overall reading for your situation, for your life in general, for your long-term aims and stuff, that's the method I'd like to show today. So if you're still in the live chat, just let me know and I'll do this reading for you. Otherwise, I'll pass it on to somebody else with priority to actual members of the channel. And the membership of the channel is going very well. Thank you very much for being a member, for all those who are members. I've uploaded today a 40-minute members only video. That is the 8th lesson in the Anetheon series, looking at Western esotericism, actual magical practice. And it's a really important lesson that I put up today. I've talked about Christian mysticism, initiation, the grade system, and why the main differences between how I teach esotericism and how it's generally promoted online and so forth. So I've spent some time doing that, and there's a particular method in that which is on achieving multi-dimensional consciousness. So yeah, hopefully you're getting your value in the members area, and I've got 2 more lessons in that, and then I'm going to do another series on something else, perhaps, and obviously we can discuss what you'd like, and then I'll do another series of the Anetheon when I've got a good idea for what level of information you'd like. So I Newton, that's a good question. Aleister Crowley's Tarot book, worth a read? Well, it certainly is. Let me just put these 2 books back. I'll just be with you in a second. Just put those back there, and I'm just going to grab this one here. So the Book of Thoth is worth reading, but it is a difficult read because it is not well organized. It is packed full of information. Its main purpose, hello Nerdy Rodent, with the wonderful Monica and emoji avatar picture. So Crowley did this book very late on in his life and his magical life, and so its real purpose is, it is like the deck itself. The purpose of the deck was to be a manifesto to university people, the academia, who Crowley was desperate to try and attract to adopt the law of Thelema and his mystical, spiritual, scientific Illuminism, his world view. And the deck was really a pictorial prospectus of his teaching of Thelema. So it's not designed as a deck to be read in the usual way. And in the same way that the Waite Smith was not really designed to be read by fortune tellers, by tarot card readers, Waite was at pains to almost ensure that he had stated it was not for reading in that way, even though he begrudgingly gave methods to read it that way, otherwise no one would have bought it. But this book is, you have to understand, for example, the I Ching. You have to understand a little bit of astrology. You have to understand a lot of geomancy, which is how the minor arcana are designed. You have to understand Crowley's Book of the Law. You have to understand ancient Egyptian mythology. You have to understand what the AA is and the difference between the AA and the OTO, magical organizations. You have to understand what the aeons are about. You have to, and this is just on this one page, you have to understand what alchemy is about. Crowley was writing this at the end of a lifetime of esoteric experience and study. So, you're going in from the back end into Crowley's work that way. Now, as this is my channel, I get to advertise things, so I would highly recommend in 3 volumes my Secrets of the Thoth Tarot, particularly book 1, and then if you like book 1, then you can welcome to get the other 2 books. But what I've done is I backward engineered 45 years of my own study of Crowley, his 55 years of work, into what you need to know first. And so this, for example, is about the aeons. So Crowley described aeons as a series of long periods of human history, characterized in a particular manner according to the nature of ancient Egyptian deities. And so I've really, yes, indeed, I've really gone to pains to then look at where Crowley got the idea from and how he developed it, and then how it's been developed since then. So I brought together all of my studies as my own sort of notebook on Crowley into this, and then I've actually gone through the cards one at a time with a lot of quotes from Crowley in order to explain all of the symbolism one at a time as clearly as possible. And obviously the footnotes are quite extensive at the back, and the reading list and so forth, so you can see how many of the books that Crowley is referring to throughout the Book of Thoth. And yeah, this is in 3 volumes. There's volume 1, which has got most of the background of Thelema in it. This is actually from my own private collection. It's a telegram from Frieda Harris to Crowley saying, "Are you all right? Mercury finished." Book 2 is on the minor arcana, and then that gives me the chance to explain how geomancy and the I Ching really fit into the Thoth deck. And then book 3 is actually my favourite, because it gave me time to look at the court cards, and in particular how Crowley used the tarot itself. So we've got each of the cards explained with the illustration, the description, the shadow aspect of it that Crowley really did focus on. His court cards, his understanding of human nature is unparalleled outside of psychology, and he really understood human behavior, human nature, and that is embodied in the court cards. That's why one of the many reasons it's such a powerful deck to read with. And then I've put in the I Ching as well and explained how that corresponds as well. And then to make it practical, because I read the cards as a living, in everyday reading, if this card turns up as a person, then it's like this. As an influence, theme, or energy, it's like that. And as a part of yourself, it can be read like that. So there's a there's 3 books in that sequence, but I would recommend starting as soon as possible on the Book of Thoth, just understanding that it's not well laid out, it's a bit random, and yet it's absolutely fully packed of a lifetime of study. And I'm still studying this book 45 years later, and learning new things every time I open it as well. So it's worth starting to read as soon as possible. Was Meddling the Sheep saying, every time I read it, I pick up more, but it's a treasure map of things to study. Absolutely, yep, that's the case. So I think we're going to do a reading for Shelley then. So Shelley. So I just wanted to, I'm just going to put away these cards from last time. And Shelley, I'm going to do you a general reading to demonstrate this method, if that's okay with you. Let me just make sure I put these all right. these over here, put these in the bag here. Stick that down there and stick those over there for now. I'm going to need the middle of the table for this because this is a classic layout that is going to be a pyramid spread. So, Shelley, is this okay for you to do a general reading and to use it to, use it to explain how this reading is done? As I said, if you want this and a load of other things, it's all in Practical Tarot Techniques, published by Llewellyn, by myself, and written by myself and Tali. So, the work, Marie, into the Thoth book actually includes some unique material from studying Crowley's actual diaries. When I was 19, I went to the Warburg for the first time and actually spent a couple of days with Crowley's original notebooks that are stored there, his diaries, letters, correspondence and so forth, back in the day when you could just have a whole pile of them given to you and sent off to a private area to study them. Unfortunately, quite a few were stolen at that time, and now they literally, you have to sign a piece of paper and you're given one sheet at a time and have to return it and then get the next sheet, and that can be awfully time consuming if it's a stack of letters that might be 100 sheets. But in the course of that first visit, I transcribed something called the Book of Hor. Now, that's Crowley's own notebook from Egypt in 1904 when he received his transmitted, inspired piece of writing called the Book of the Law. But what very few people know is that it's actually got a whole section on his notes on tarot in it that have never been published. Now, I tried to publish those, and this is between you, I, and the woodwork, as the Invocation of Hor. And that's an actual photo of the notebook that's that Crowley mentions his reception of the Book of the Law and all the things that happen about it and things like that. And I can't show you that because I was banned from the Warburg, although I've since later talked to them about it, so it's all cool, by the OTO, and this book was taken off the market by the OTO, who owned the copyright to Aleister Crowley's unpublished writings. But what I did was I have snuck that in to the my own work, Secrets of the Thoth Tarot. I can't tell you where it is exactly, and I can't tell you how I've snuck it in, but be assured that Secrets of the Thoth Tarot has a transmission, if you like, a restating of what Crowley wrote about the tarot all the way back in 1904, because that really shows us something fascinating about Crowley and the tarot that if I was to do a YouTube clickbait thumbnail, it would be what the OTO don't want you to know, and I would talk about that very thing. But rather than sensationalize it that way, all I've done is I think it's very important. There's no reason why the OTO should have those rights, in my opinion at least, and I think it's important enough for me to rewrite it somewhat and tell people and communicate it in my own books. So it's hidden in there, and you are now some of the few people to know that. So here we go. Now, this is a Kabbalistic method, but we're not going to go in depth into Kabbalah because I've done that a lot of late. So we have a Tree of Life, and if you're an absolute beginner, then this is the Kabbalah. It's a Judaic spiritual system. and it's mapped to the tarot. That's all we need to know for now. Got that right? Yep, sort of ish. And basically, if we have a tree of life, most importantly, we have sort of 4 worlds, and they can be divided into a number of different ways. But let's do it this way for now. And these 4 worlds are quite important, and they're actually the world of the wands, the cups, the swords, sort of more down there, and the pentacles down at the bottom. Okay, so imagine that we've got these 4. This is a map of the universe. It's a map of how everything happens. It's illustrated in our tarot cards, and it exists in 4 worlds. But because these are not circles, they're not spheres, they are called Sephiroth, and they are called numerical emanations. That's what the word Sephiroth, and the singular is Sephira for just one of them. Sephiroth is the plural. It means numerical emanation. Okay, so the Kabbalists basically in a nutshell said that the world exists, it manifests in 10 different sorts of simultaneous emanations in 4 different levels. And that's really cool because we have 10 minor arcana and 4 suits, hence leading to the whole tarot was designed as a secret teaching of the Kabbalah, or Kabbalists designed the tarot deck or whatever. But certainly Arthur Edward Waite, who did the Waite-Smith deck, and with Pamela Coleman Smith, and Alice Crowley, who did the Thoth deck, which I have over there, with Frida Harris. She didn't like being called Lady Frida Harris, although she was technically a lady. So we have the epic Thoth Tarot here. Were versed in the Kabbalah, were actually versed in the Kabbalah. And so there is Kabbalah in it, and it's been amplified, consolidated, replicated, lent into by the designers of these 2 most influential tarot decks. So we have to accept that there is Kabbalah in the tarot. Now, because these are numerical emanations, and I'm going to get to the reading in a second, we can actually also do the Pythagorean layout like so of a pyramid, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's 1 thing there, 2 there, 3 there, and 4 there. Make sense? So we can almost rearrange the 4 worlds and the 10 Sephiroth into a layout. What's it called? The Tetris? Something like that. Someone can perhaps correct me. Something like that in the chat. Or look it up and put it into the chat. The Pythagorean triangle. Let's call it that for now. Now, knowing all of that, we can then simplify it and put it into a tarot card reading. And it's a powerful reading because it honours the Kabbalah that's actually naturally in the deck, and it also follows the Kabbalistic pattern of the 4 worlds and the 10 Sephiroth, but in a dead simple way. So, Shelley, what we're going to do is do a spiritual reading for you, a whole life reading based on the entire structure of the cosmos, according to Kabbalah, where this one here will be the sort of core of your being, the most important thing that you need to know right now. the first card there. Okay, then these two cards we read together, and these are basically your creativity. Okay, this is what you are called to create. Okay, and this is basically your Kether, Hokmah, and Bina of the Tree of Life, you see. And then these three here we read together, and this is a good practice method because you learn to read a single card, 2 cards together, 3 cards together, and then of course 4 cards together. And then also you can see the resonances sort of between the layers as well, all the way through the reading. So it works better in that sense than a practicing with another 10-card reading like the Celtic Cross. I prefer this one for practice. This is the one that I would teach people. And then these 3 here are your resources. And those that know my 3-minute method will see we've got resources, lesson and challenge built into this, just a bit invisibly. These are the resources because this is your structural world of the swords. So this is your sort of structure that underpins your creativity and your core. Make sense? I'm just going to change from top chat to live chat because sometimes that hides chat from me, but I'm assuming people are still with me in the chat. Then on this level, on the ground level, we basically have the your life elements. And because we have 4 positions, we can now bring back the Wands, Cups, Swords and Pentacles, these 4 worlds, and have that one as your lifestyle, or your will, your ambition, i.e. the Wands. This one as your passion, or your emotional lifestyle, which is the Cups. This card is your education. Again, all of this is in, and it's got an example that Tali read for in Practical Tarot Techniques in the book. So this one is education, and this is the sword. So this is your sort of mental state, everything to do with swords. And then, of course, this last card here, because we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is our Malkuth, is our World of Pentacles, and of course this is your work and resources, health and money, all of that sort of thing. And all of these resonate down this way, down this way, down this way. They all resonate together, because that's how life should be. Make sense? I do meditation. I do a nighttime meditation, usually for about an hour. Although I tend to go to sleep during it, so sometimes it only takes about 10 minutes. And I go through phases of doing Liber Resh, which is a brief meditation. 4 times a day, at dawn, at noon, at sunset, and at midnight. So I tend to do like quite active meditations, although I do sometimes do quite odd change of state type meditations where I sort of try and trick my brain into doing something that is, clearly not designed to do. And so I don't like doing sit-down meditations, asanas and things like that. I did go through a phase of doing yoga and so on, but I found that wasn't as effective for me personally, just the way my poor brain works. So yeah, so it's good, a bit like visualization. It's a really good question, I Newton. It's a bit like visualization, that it's good to explore around the subject and find a way of doing it that works for you and makes sense, and not keep trying and failing to do it the way one school thinks of it as, or one person or one teacher or one book thinks of it as. When I teach the inner guide meditation, I teach that so that people can do it from all sorts of different ways, even with their eyes open. That's not the best way of doing it, usually, for most people, but it is possible that will work for one person. And so it's always best to find what works for you. 1 to 2 hours at noon in a garden, that's brilliant. And it is so important, meditation or some sort of mental practice. In fact, I was recounting recently the story of when I went into my first occult bookshop, and the guy there, a guy called Andy, in the Ace of Wands bookshop in Derby, back in the when was that, the early 80s? I would have been about 15 at the time. He gave me a book on yoga first, on mental yoga, before he'd even sell me a book on Crowley or Doreen Valiente or anyone else. Nerdy Rodent, so you perambulate. Well, that is a really good way of doing it. I love talking on the phone when I'm walking. I prefer to talk on the phone when I'm walking. Even if I'm in the house and on the phone, I will walk around, because I don't like sitting down while I'm talking because of the way my brain's working when I'm talking. So it is really good to find what works for you, and never have anyone say that's not proper meditation, or you have to learn it this way, or whatever. Find what works for you always is the rule. Right, Shelley, so we've got 20 minutes. I hope people are enjoying the chat. That's nice to have. So this is a reading for Shelley, and it's going to follow our pyramid of core creation resources and elements, the Tectris. If someone could kindly look up Pythagoras triangle, and hopefully either the AI or Google will tell us how it's spelled. Tectris is the word I'm after. Okay, right, so I feel that I just need to shuffle these a little bit more. So we're just going to do that. Oh, right, okay, Shelley, here's your reading then. So here is your core. So we have the Hierophant. Wow, okay, well, as a card in itself, this is very much the bridge. It is the interface. It is the in-between. It is the key. To me, Hierophant, it comes from the Greek, meaning Hierophantus. Oh, thanks a lot, Tony. Tetractis. Okay, right. Pythagorean triangle, it's going to be known as from henceforth. I decree it. So, so the Hierophant is it comes from the Greek. So I may know the Greek source, but I can't pronounce it for the life of me. Hierophantus, revealer of the sacred. So the Hierophant is not necessarily a priest or an expert. It is that part of you that is the bridge, that is the connection between the above and the below. This is the outer manifestation of the magician and the high priestess, to some extent. It is the visible church, the visible religious structure of things, of belief and so forth. So, Shelley, at your core, there is this mystical connection, this sense of belongingness of the world to the world, but to the inner world more than the outer world, or being in between the worlds, if that makes sense. Yeah, well, Nerdy Rodent, it's both Pythagorean and also Kabbalistic, because there's a numerical structure, obviously, that corresponds between both systems. So, Shelley, and the sun in the 8th house. So now we have the world of creation, which is, suddenly we get into a binary world, okay? Because all creation comes from division. The 1 becomes the 2, the 2 becomes the 3, and the 3 becomes the 1. So Queen of Cups and the Tower. Now, again, this is really interesting. In terms of your creativity, there is a very rebellious streak to you. A break, create, what's the tech bros thing about move fast and break things? There is a sense of that you often achieve by trying things, failing at things, breaking things, going one route, almost not self-destructively, but getting to the breaking point of it, testing it out, teasing it, pulling at it until it does break, and that's the way you learn. So with the Queen of Cups, this is what Waite called a woman who truly knows her own dreams. So there's a deep emotional connection. Now, for our tarot certificate class, Talid sent me today a 2-word keywords for each of the court cards, ready for tomorrow's, Sunday's tarot certificate class. And I'm trying to remember what she had for Queen of Cups. It was something like divine emotion, something like that. But it's a really emotive, deep creativity. But you have to connect to that dreaminess, to that sense of the beyond, that feeling, that quite emotive, abstract is the word I'm after, abstract feeling of the beyond, and bring it through as much as you can into your everyday life. That is where your creativity really lies. But it is quite radical, and you have to be prepared to break through even your own expectations and so forth, to be true to this inner soul, this depth that you have, that is really powering from your core, that you feel better when you are connected like that. But it doesn't always necessarily function well in the everyday world, but you need to change your structures around you so that it does. And then we have the resources that you have access to. Interesting. Wow. So in terms of the resources, the hangman follows up on this sort of pattern here. In fact, on the Tree of Life, the hangman and the Hierophant are sort of opposites to each other, because the hangman is when you are immersed in this world. Things are always upside down, in the Hierophant's case, inside out, in the inner world to the everyday world. Things that make sense in your emotive life, in your emotions, don't always make sense in the outside world. They're sort of quite opposite to each other, hence this sort of constant breaking down and rebuilding that has to go on. But if you hold to your highest values, which is how I see the Hanged Man, with this depth, and here we can see how we're reading the triangle downwards like this at the moment, as well as across, then there's a sense of connection, and that lights up the world around you. That will help clarify. If you own and belong to this inner world, then things will make sense. You don't have to be, this is literally the card of being in the world but not of it. And it's an important thing for us occultists that we have to be in the world and not try and escape it. That's the worst thing to do, in my opinion. That's a sin, a literal sin, to reject the world as it has been given to us, the garden of creation around us, but we are not to be beholden to it as true, as real, as eternal. Okay? So, yeah, there is a sense of that loneliness, but there is an inner connection to it. And this is where you can meet other people. There is a sense of meeting people of a like mind, of a like heart, of sharing this cup. And you don't have to expose yourself to the other people or have them sort of, break into your life somehow, but you can find a sort of meeting point in this is your resources, and that will benefit you because you will create something that is more arises, that is better than you alone. Okay? And transformation, you have the power of transformative work coming from your inner knowledge, what you have inside. Okay? Yeah, well, I understand Nerdy and Sherry as well, but it is difficult to meet people who are going to share the same things. I've recently, for example, reached out to a group of people who are becoming friends in an everyday sense, but none of them share. We have a mutual interest outside of the esoteric. And literally yesterday, someone sent me an advert for a online phone tarot card reader, as if I would be interested in that. And it was like, oh, we need to have the chat, that my tarot is not that sort of psychic scam artist, get your credit card number on a telephone call or on an online website or system and string you along as long as possible because we're charging you £18 a minute for your call, and I'm just making stuff up and laying tarot cards down as part of the scam. And it's like quite disappointing to realise that a lot of people, that's what tarot is. They know I'm into tarot. They don't know I've written 54 books. Or if they do, that is overwritten entirely by the idea of tarot cards being a bit of a scam. It's something they've seen online, and it's a bit of make-believe or something like that. And that's literally all they know about tarot. And that is not It's just the case of things. So we have to find our online communities, and we are very lucky to be living in an age where we can. And I hope this YouTube channel, for example, is a place where you can at least hang out for a little while and talk about this sort of thing, if nowhere else. But there are plenty of places I hope that you can find online where there are just a few people, you don't have to have many, where you can at least share some of your interests and passions. Right, so this is your resources. So you do have the ability to help transform both yourself and other people by breaking the mold and by sharing some of your own inner experience. And that's coming down that line. But you have to be prepared to really connect to what is important to your heart and live by that, literally hang by that. We do have TarotCon events. We did a lot in the early days of the Tarot Association. We had TarotCon events in the US, in England, in Europe, and in Australia. We had a couple. And we are looking forward to doing more. I'm going to one in the Philippines. There's a big one in the Philippines that a great guy called Rob Rubin does. And I speak there. And there's a load of great people out in the Philippines, in Japan as well, in Tokyo, at the Tokyo Tarot Museum. Moto-san there is doing a brilliant job at teaching the tarot from a spiritual point of view, from an artistic point of view. It's a brilliant project he's got there. So yeah, there are. We also have the members area of this channel as well. You're invited to join us there. I'm setting up a Discord for that, and that also connects to our Crucible Club, Order of Everlasting Day, Magicka School, and the Tarot Association, all of which are places where we have good moderators, like we have Tony here at the moment on our Facebook groups. And in Magicka School, Brina sort of looks after Magicka School very well, looks after the students there. So we do have several places ourselves where I always like to say, for example, our Order of Everlasting Day, our esoteric order, is for those of us who don't join. It's a magical group for those of us who do not join magical groups. So I had to come up with a group for people who, like me, really don't like joining groups. I joined so many groups when I was younger, and ultimately they each disappointed me or didn't serve me that well, or I wasn't a right fit for them along the line after X amount of time with each particular group. So eventually I think you have to become the teacher that you've always been looking for the early part of your life. And then in terms of your 4 elements in the outside world, then we have wands, cups, swords and pentacles. Confusingly enough, I know, but this is just the 4 worlds of your ambitions, your passions, your educational life, and your work and resources. So here's what you need to do in the outside world to really bring and triangulate, see what I did there, triangulate all of these other elements of your life. So here we have the 9 of Cups, and this is in your lifestyle, your will, your ambition, the world of wands, literally, your direction, your pointingness, and so forth. And the most important thing about this card to me is that Pamela Colman Smith modelled it on Falstaff and in Shakespeare. And there's a quote particularly in Henry V where the prince asks Falstaff, or says to Falstaff, "You have forgotten to ask that which you would truly wish to know." You have forgotten to ask that which is important for you to know. And it's because Falstaff has fallen into a lifestyle of drinking and carousing and so forth. And basically, Henry is trying to wake him up to asking the important questions again. Not getting lost, not disconnecting in the wrong way from the world and from your own values, or allowing the world to disconnect you from what's important to you, from your own dreams, that you have got to now in your everyday life start to ask the questions that you might have forgotten or set aside, and start to remember to ask the important questions like, what does this mean for me? What do I want? What has worked for me in the past? What doesn't work for me now? What can I do about it? What do I want to do? What do I want my life to look like? All of the important questions, okay? And then the second card for your passion has to be to begin to understand that to follow your passion, it is going to be difficult. You are going to have to make difficult decisions. This person can't see the point anymore of the swords. Pamela hasn't run out of space there in the card. She's deliberately drawn them as endless swords because you can't see an end to things. But you can see that there's a ladder to climb out of this situation. But you have to literally climb a ladder of razor blades to get out of the situation, to move on. So in terms of following your passion, it's going to be difficult, but not impossible, and it is the way to make progress. To take some cutting decisions and to see each one as a step differently, in a different direction, to just accepting the pain of things continuing forever without any agency. Then, in a brighter note, with education and your thinking, this was more to do with your creative life. So here with your thinking, there has to be a revolution. The wheel is change. You have to literally do something that changes how you think about things. Learn a different way of looking at things. Take a class, take a course, watch a YouTube tutorial, however it may be. How do I look at things differently? How can I think about things in a revolutionary new way? I'm currently learning myself a different way about going about decision making that is in a book that I'm reading. And it's always good to find different ways of thinking, because we habituate thinking in the same way we habituate most behaviour, and sometimes we cannot think our way out of a situation because the way we think is the thing that is holding us in the situation. So we have to learn a whole new way about thinking about things, and that's always exciting to do and revolutionary. And then the brightest side of all of this destruction and change and transformation and holding to your highest values and reaching out to other people, which you now see is in the heart of this, to create something better than just yourself alone, is here with your work and your life, is building this domestic contentment, this happiness, bringing it all together. And seeing the joy in life. This is your life work, is to see and share the living joy of life itself. So, hello Apox. We're just about to finish, but hopefully there's a load in this technique that you can enjoy and rewatch later. That's wonderful. Okay, Shelley, does that make sense? And does that make sense? We've got a few minutes to finish. We're at the top of the hour now. But does anyone have any questions about that layout, that reading? We saw that it came from turning the Kabbalah into a triangle, and it's great because it allows you to practice your understanding of Kabbalah as it applies to a layout. It allows you to practice a 1-card reading, 2-card reading, 3-card reading, 4-card reading. Then it allows you to practice resonating between different layers of a reading, and so on. And if you have time, what you can do is use this as a title of a haiku, a Japanese poem with 3 lines, with 5 syllables, 7 syllables, and 5 syllables. So you write a haiku with the title would be The Teacher, for example, or The Church, or The Mystical Hierophant, or The Man in Red, whatever you want the title to be. And then you write a line for these 2 cards using only 5 syllables. So deep, dreaming, dreaming, destruction. There we go, dreaming, destruction. And then 7 syllables for this line, and then 5 syllables for this line. Okay? And that also trains your brain to consolidate illustrative series of images into language, into succinct ways of talking about the cards. And it forces your brain to do all sorts of unconscious things to schmooze the cards together. And that's really good for the rest of your readings as well. So as a practice method, this has a lot to recommend itself to you, and that's partly why I wanted to just go through it today, so that we could do. We've done plenty of individual readings in this live series, but I just thought we'd do a bit of a teaching one as well. Okay, any questions about that? Otherwise, we shall finish up, and I look forward to you enjoying the weekend. I don't know what plans you have for the weekend. I'm prepping to go down to Cromford next week to help a friend out with a move of his comic book shop that he is doing down in Derbyshire. So I'm going to help out with that for a couple of days. I'm continuing on with the YouTube boot camps. Those have sort of come to an end for now. I've got a few follow-up ones to finish, but they've given me a load of ideas about lighting, about cameras, about multi-camera YouTube videos, going live, all sorts of things. So I'm looking forward to developing the channel with that. And I've got to start sending out the decks, the free decks for membership, the Tarot of the Secret Dawn, because I was ill for a week or so. That's been delayed a bit, but I think probably what we'll do is we'll just send them out and then invoice people for the postage afterwards. And yeah, we're not too bothered about that as long as we get the decks to people who earned them by joining during that time period. So thanks a lot, everyone, and I look forward to chatting with you over next week. And any questions, drop them in the comments. Check out the TikTok channel if you really do want to dredge your brain into TikTok. I don't know if we're going to be there for very long, but we are experimenting with it until the end of the year. The channel is called the_actual_magician. But basically, it's got a load of shorts in it that I've cut from our longer YouTube videos. So that's it. So thanks a lot, Tony. Thanks a lot, Tony, for moderating as ever. Thanks a lot, everyone. It's nice to see some faces back with us. And yeah, everyone have a great weekend. And again, we're always here for questions. So just drop us an email at pa@celestialcanopy.com. PA, I'll type that in. Celestialcanopy.com. That's the best email to get hold of us. Oh, thanks for that, Tony. Yeah. I feel a bit dirty. You sending people to TikTok. So yeah, good luck, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend, and I look forward to seeing you perhaps next week as well. Okay, take care. And as ever, I should say, as ever, the worker is hidden in the workshop. Bye for now.